Welcome back to the TNEC cast, episode 49. And I'm going to say I'm excited for every episode, but I'm definitely excited for this episode because not necessarily that we're moving in a different direction, but as you see where we're going, this is going to be pretty damn cool. So I'm excited about that. And the D word doesn't count, so don't put the counter on. But anyway, when you man Chef with the Weapon K, we are the TNEC cast. Like I said, episode 49. The always housekeeping. Like, comment, subscribe. One thing we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks before we see how K is feeling. We've been talking about more things that we want to do for the YouTube channel. We kind of got Instagram on Smash, and that's been great, but we want to conquer this YouTube thing. And so we got some new things coming down the pipe, so we just want y'all to hopefully tap in and give us feedback, what you like, what you don't like, what we should do more of, and things like that. So we want to make sure we got that out of the way because this episode is gonna be we gonna be rolling and flowing. I'm excited. So Kay, how you feeling?
I'm chilling, man. Life's good. Healthy wife, healthy child. I cannot complain. I'm healthy. I cannot complain. So this episode, next few episodes, we're going to be basically talking about training philosophies and stuff like that. So we're going to start off with how we set up our sets, or how he sets his clients up with his sets, going from beginner to advanced. How do you judge effort if you use an RPE, RIR approach, and rest times. So we might not touch on anything but sets. So we're just going to flow, talk about things, and So straight to coach. For a beginner, how do you set up the amount of sets, let's say, for a push day?
So the one thing you always got to keep in mind, and I know it sounds simple, you always got to keep in mind the person's goals. Muscle gain, fat loss, whatever it is. So then the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is how much time. I always ask somebody, how much time can you dedicate to the gym? Because look, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with going to the gym for 2 hours, but even bodybuilders, 99% of us don't need 2 hours in the gym to get an effective workout, things like that. So you got to think about where your volume wants to be. Is your volume going to be in the exercises, i.e. trying to have people do 8-10 exercises, or is the volume going to be in the sets? Okay, they're only doing 3 or 4 exercises, but they're doing 5-6 reps each one, which if you're doing it properly can take a little bit of time. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at goals, looking at where they are, looking at where we're trying to get to, and then looking at time. So I take all those things, put it together, and that's those are the first tools that I'm using to assess how I'm going to give you how many sets I'm going to give you of a given thing. And then the other thing is I always like to allow so when we say sets, we'll make sure. So when we say sets, right? We're talking about, so you have bench press. How many sets are you going to do? Is it going to be 3 sets? Is it going to be 4 sets? How do you count your warm up? Because everybody's a little bit different.
Oh, yeah.
Because for compound moves, I'm one of those people that I always say, do like 1 or 2 warm up sets or whatever, just to kind of get your body going a little bit. Now, no warm up. I'm not here to try to argue that, because nobody's right or wrong in that. You'll be arguing until the till the cows come home over that one. But that's one of those things. And then, something that's a little more advanced, and we talk about the beginners, but talking about what a working set is, because a working set is different to other people. You know what I mean? Because some people, they say they're doing 6 sets, but only 2 working sets. What does that mean to you? So as we'll go through, but we're focusing more on beginners. So usually my beginners, it's 3 to 4 sets. That's really where I'm starting most people at. Because 2 is just not enough unless you're doing a high volume of reps. So, and then the other thing is, are you doing warm-ups? So with the compound movements, when I'm giving you 3 or 4, 9 times out of 10, I'm saying, okay, do 1 or 2. Like, so I'll use bench press as an example. I might say, bench the bar for 30 seconds, depending on your strength level, bench the bar for 30 seconds, and then do a lighter weight for 10 reps or something like that, just to kind of get your body warmed up, get things going, and then you jump into the work. Now, from the coaching standpoint, I got to let people know that. I can't just make an assumption because I'm looking at to get certain things firing before they start the exercise. So, and there's just a lot of different ways. So this is where me and Kay, we got to be careful because we could start. I mean, when I say
for days,
if you are really like into this stuff like we are, you can. I mean, because I'll start thinking about a technique that I'll bring it up real quick. A technique that I learned, and I sometimes still use it with most of my chest and shoulder moves, where you basically do like 5 little quarter reps before you start. So you whatever you're trying to hit, whether it's the front delt, rear delt, upper chest, middle chest, inner chest, whatever it is, you get those firing real quick. I actually learned this from Jay Cutler, as a matter of fact. You start to get those firing before you do the work inside of that rep or inside of that set. So it's a pretty cool technique because it definitely works and it creates difference. So without taking too much more time on this, that's what I'm looking at. And then also I want to start people. So if Kyle retired, because that's the only way that I would have to take over. If Kyle retired and Kay was okay, you gotta be the official, not just the big brother support kind of thing. With him, I know that he's not beginner or intermediate. So I know it's a little bit different in terms of progressive overload. So one of the things that you need to leave room for with progressive overload is to be able to add more sets, because sometimes that's the progressive overload depending on where you are in the program. It's not so much about necessarily doing more weight or anything like that per se, but it's like, okay, 3 sets of 12, first 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, now week 4, I want you doing 4 sets of 12. Because now that is progressive overload in one way. So okay, when you're here goes a good question about sets. Do you have a difference? Because you're in prep now. When you're setting up the sets that you do, is there a difference when you are in surplus versus prep? Where do you stay? How do you set that up? And what's your thought process?
No. So, and like, no and yes, kinda. So for the great majority of prep in the off season, no, right? However, you have to also look at, one, am I still progressing in ellipse, or am I like matching my numbers or going down ever so slightly? Or 2, is my recovery just trash? Because you won't recover the same in the deep 4 weeks of prep than in the off season, right? Mm-hmm. So if so, I would probably take 1 set down and then see how my body adjusts, and then go from there and just kind of see, okay, what is sore, what is taking the biggest hit, what causes the most. It's called stimulus to fatigue ratio, right? So let's say if I'm just painfully fatigued, let's say for legs, right, and my body's just shot, my CNS is shot, I would probably take a set off squats, like a hack squat, before I would take a set off of leg extensions, just because there's way more stimulus to fatigue ratio on leg extensions than for hack squat, because hack squat is high fatigue, high stimulus. You see what I'm saying? So you just kind of adjust from there. But if it's not needed, then it's not needed. The biggest thing with the biggest thing about changing your training going into prep is that you don't touch anything. You don't be like, let's do more reps and less. No. Because let's confuse the muscle. No, let's keep everything the exact same so your logbook can look the exact same. Am I getting stronger? Am I getting weaker? Why? How? You see what I'm saying? But you did break down something that I learned probably a few months ago about. So I do 2 sets in the majority of my movements, and I would still give 4 sets to a beginner. Or probably like 3, right? They can grow doing anything. However, the effort that I have in my 2 sets is different from the effort that they're going to have the output of their 4 sets. Mm-hmm. So let's say, fresh kid, 18, just wants to start the gym. He really doesn't have that mind-muscle connection with an incline Smith press, right? So the amount of output I can put out on 2 sets surpasses his 4, and one, he can hone in on that technique as well of actually putting his mind in the muscle, and breaking down warm-up sets. This is also a really good one that we can go an entire new video on, and how I break down my warm-up sets, and we can talk about yours. Is that the lower weight? So let's do the hack squat. No, let's do an incline Smith press. Okay. I put 135 on the bar and make sure everything is aligned. Make sure everything looks pretty, right? Is my shoulders okay? The whole point of the warm-up is to take account of like, okay, am I good to do this movement, or do I just throw it away and switch to a different one, right? My shoulders feeling okay? Yes. My pecs feeling okay? Yes. Keep going down the checklist. 135, probably hit around 8 to 10. Then 185, probably 8. 225, I'm touching probably 4 to 6 reps. How is this feeling? And as I'm going down this checklist, how is this feeling? How am I feeling? Am I still sore? Do I feel like something's going to snap? And then from there, as I'm getting heavier in weight, the warm-up sets, the reps in those sets are becoming very few. Right? So like let's say I work up, like yesterday, I think we hit 285. I hit it for 2 and I racked it. Because I'm like, okay, now my body's used to this load. I mentally prepared for this load. It's showtime now. Do you have the same philosophy with warm-up sets? Or do you, like let's say 4 sets of 12, you do 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, and then showtime, and then, you do 12 to go on?
So it depends on the movement. So if we're talking about incline, and also for me, so now I'm kind of going to go just directly to me for a second. So what I'll do is, again, my big thing is the warm with so incline. That's a incline Smith press. That is a compound movement. You know what I mean? So what I'll do is if I got 4 of 12, I'll probably do 2 warm-up sets, depending on how I feel. Sometimes I only do 1. Sometimes I'll do 2. It just really depends, and it's really it's kind of like how you were wording it. So when you're doing incline, you're working that upper shelf basically. Trying to hit that. So I'm making sure that I'm right in there, ready to get that going, and then I'll hit my 4 sets of 12. So in totality, it could end up being 6 sets. So that's where. And then the other thing is, so let's just say I choose my weight. So right now, I don't know why I'm thinking about dumbbells. So I choose my weight, and I realize that, oh wait, this is way too light. Like I even got to 12, and I didn't have to give a little extra oomph or anything like that. So then I'll move up in weight. So there's different little signifiers that I'm looking for. One of the, and now put coach hat back on. So that's why I love using 12, because it's a good way to kind of break things down in the quarters. And I always tell people, if you are not feeling the weight by the 8th or 9th rep, it's too light.
That's interesting that you say that, because I use 10.
Okay, so I mean, so you know what I mean? But it's like you have this signifier, and look, whether it's 8, 9, 10, all of them make sense. They're all in that right where you kind of can feel. It's like, because if you haven't felt it by then, it's not that you've wasted it, especially if you have really good form. It's just that's how you kind of know, okay, I need to increase this load a little bit, because if I stay like this for another 2 or 3 weeks, progressive overload's going bye-bye. I'm progressively staying the same now. So that's those are the keys that I'm looking for. And then again, every exercise is a little bit different about how I attack the working sets. Now I kind of go in the back. Oh, go ahead.
What is a working set for the people who really can't discern the difference between? You said 4 sets, coach. What is a working set for you?
So a working set for me is basically what you want to be graded on. And when I say what you want to be graded on, that's where you're going to get your results. You don't get your results from the warm-up. The warm-up helps you. You don't get your results technically from a cool down. It's those moves that are being graded and being judged by you. When I say by you, I mean your body. So that's where I'm kind of giving a more working definition versus a working set is this,
Yeah.
because there's really no one true definition to what a working set is. And that's just those sets where that really from rep 1 to rep whatever, it's the same force, the same RPE, rate of perceived effort. To me, the form, one of the big things I really pride myself on, and I try to implore, to the team and to the athletes and clients, unless you're maxing out rep 1, and whether it be rep 6, rep 8, rep 10, whatever your final rep is for that set, should look as similar to rep 1 as possible.
Yep.
So if you are, we'll use bench again, rep 1 is beautiful, but rep 8, your, left arm is up before the right arm and all that stuff. Not saying that's not a working set, but you cheated yourself out of the work. So where people get a little bit messed up, they think that's the heaviest weight or anything like that. No. These are the sets that are really breaking down those muscle fibers. That's what that working set is. I guess that's the more, to me, the more literal kind of definition of, if I had to write one sentence, those are the sets that are breaking down those muscle fibers.
Yeah, because I would definitely concur on that one. It's the ones that actually count. Right. It's like you can take as many warm-up sets as well as you want, but if you're not hitting those effective reps, I forgot who coined this. I learned it from Joe Bennett, and he got it from someone else. But the effective reps is pretty much the last, let's say, 5 reps of an exercise, right? The real grinders. If you're not touching a grinder and it's not hard, then you're really leaving some stuff on the table. Sure, like you don't want to have like a stupid grinder on like a squat or a bench press without a spotter, because that's just not safe, right? But more so of, like, let's say, a bicep curl, where you really got to put everything in there, and it's slow too. And that's whenever back when I was coaching, I would have my clients film their lifts. And that's when you can kind of judge the effort, the tempo of the lift. So whenever, like, perfect example, hack squat, right? Whenever they gotta just go up and down, let's say they just hit 10 and they rack it. It's like, no, you had more in there, right? And I'm talking about like competitors, right? Some people who aspire to step on stage, where it's just like, okay, we have to teach you how to go to that next level, not just like Mrs. Jones down there, just like, okay, I'm gonna rack it. And like, you can get gains from that, whatever, right? Talking about people want to take their physiques to the next level. It's like, no, you had more in there because you didn't contemplate racking it. That's kind of how it's like, especially when you go up and down. Let's say you hit 7 and you're gassed.
Yep,
you got to stop, and you have to think, and then you're just like, 1, 2, 3, and you just go. Yep. And that last one, you know what I mean? Just like boom, 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 rack. It's not this, consistent thing. That's not, in my opinion, obviously. It should look as pretty as the first one, form-wise, but the tempo should definitely drop off, especially on the concentric movement.
Yeah, because you can see it, because there's a certain level of fatigue. Certain level of fatigue that happens because, bringing up squats. And I tell people this, I'm like, if your heart rate doesn't jump up a lot while you're squatting, you're not working hard enough. Because I've done this before. So like my resting heart rate during a workout is, high 70s, somewhere in there. When I get done, usually, the bigger compound movements, my heart rate is somewhere between 125 and 140. And that's typical, because you are working so hard, and you bring up such a good point. And it's something that I'm realizing more and more with lifestyle clients. I did not, until I started coaching bodybuilders, I didn't really think about it. But a lot of people, when we're talking about RPE, again, that's rate of perceived effort, a lot of people don't really know what that is, because they think just because they're going through the motion that they're actually doing something versus just doing activity. And that's a tough conversation to have. And, you got to frame it up for people, because, they're going to the gym, and now the big difference for them is now they actually have a plan, so just right there. But for example, this might be the best example of a move that, where RPE comes in, a tricep kickback. We've all been at the gym and you've watched somebody just swinging their arm looking like they're running.
Yeah.
Or they're using their shoulders so much that there's like almost no tricep engagement at all. That's one of those moves. You'll see somebody my size, and it's rare that I even go past 30 pounds because I'm so dead set on keeping my form right. Mm. And I'm going at such a pace that by the time now I'll put my volume up just a little bit to create that strain. But let me tell you, when it's like the last 3 to 5 reps, that stuff hurts. So just because it's a lower weight or whatever versus somebody else, and I see it all the time. Forget my client. I just see it all the time. People just swinging the weight back. Mm-hmm. Then, you see the gym bros, they'll do it with 50 and they're using their short and they're going like this and they're not getting that real contraction. And this is, and why that's so important. For us as bodybuilders, I mean, that should be obvious because every piece of our body, we need it to be ping. Mm-hmm. But even as a lifestyle client, whether you're trying to get your body to look a certain way or you want to increase your fat burn during your workout, when you're just going through the motion, that allows your body to adjust easier and your body is not working quite as hard. Whereas when you're slowing it down, and I'm trying, that all adds up. If you can burn an extra 10 to 20 calories per workout, that adds up over time. I know that sounds like a small number, but a lot of you are leaving calories on the table burned from lack of effort. And that's a big thing. And that goes back into the first question about sets. I'm looking at somebody, and depends on I know some people that aren't ready to go more than 3 sets. So I might have them doing 4 exercises at 3 sets, so they're not to us, that doesn't seem like much. But to them, once you get them doing it, they're spent. And they are spent.
And that's a perfect segue into effort.
Yep.
Right. I'm just now thinking about this. I think I said this earlier, but I this is a much more prettier way to say this, is that why I do 2 sets like most exercises and whatever instead of 4 is that if I do 4 with the amount of effort that I put in these 2, I will be absolutely destroyed. Mm-hmm. There would be no way to recover from that. And so that's just to kind of clean up what I said before, as well, just to add that in there. But I want to talk about RIR, or RPE. I use RIR, reps in reserve, right? That's meaning how many more can you get? Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that's why I do 2 sets, right? Because I don't believe in RIR per se and keeping it like, let's do 3 RIR, right? Because newbie Coop, I don't know what 3 RIR for me is. Mm-hmm. Because, I might be feeling good that day. It could have been a 6 RIR. And that's just me being, transparent. It's like, so that's why RIR of 0 or 1, squat, I don't want to get buried. You see what I'm saying? But most of the time, it's straight, it's 0. It is 0. And should people be mindful of the RIR, or should they just be like, all right, I'm just going to go balls to the wall no matter what, 24/7?
So I think the number one thing, and I'd be remiss to not say this first, you got to get consistent. Because we have so even with a beginner, some of these things that we're talking about are something that you kind of grasp. So let's just say the beginner book is 15 chapters. What we're talking about is maybe about 3 or 4 chapters in. So if you kind of made it, and you're going to the gym consistently, now we're going to start taking that energy and start focusing it in the right way. So with that being said, a beginner, they definitely need, if they have a coach, it's up to us to help them understand what either RIR, RPE, what that really truly means. So and look, when I say this, there are So many different ways, you can figure it out. You figure out their weight, what they're doing, what they're doing with that. Okay, how many times can you do this? And I always cap it out at 20. I keep going up. I just keep telling them to go up and weight and do 20 reps. Go up and weight and do 20 reps. Go up and rate. Then I'm talking about like curls and things that are usually doing with a slightly weight. Then once they start to feel a difference in what they need to do to get to the 20, that's where I start to talk about the effort. I was like, you see how when you did it, when you were only curling the 5, it took you nothing to get to 20. Now that you're at the 25, you were struggling at 12. I mean, at the 12th rep, on the 20, curling with these 25s. So now it started to, that's where, because you got to try to frame it up. You got to find a common ground so they know what effort is, period. You know what I mean? Because, for example, because effort is just a force you can exert over time. For example, I'll give you an example where I accidentally overexerted force. I thought I was doing lat pull downs. I thought I'd already changed the machine down to 205 and it was still on 30 from the person from before me. So yeah, exactly. So I went to pull and I know because as you're doing a lat pull down, the weight that you're doing, especially if you've been in the gym for a while, you know about how hard you have to pull. There ain't no sense in trying to science it up. You just kind of know how hard you have to pull. To pull 205 versus to pull 30, effort. Takes a lot more effort to move 205 than to move 30. So I pulled it and I almost, thank God I got good bounce. I almost went flying because I pulled too hard. So while it's a funny thing, it's an example of how you understand your effort. And so you got to be able, you have to figure out a way. And the thing is, you can't frame it up one way because I frame it up for Kay, I frame it up for Sarita, I frame it up for some other people. I got to figure out a way that's going to make sense to them. So it may not make the way I frame it to him, frame it to her, may not make sense to the other one. So that's one of my things I do as a coach. I learn multiple ways to say the same thing because you just don't know how it's going to stick, for each person. So as we're trying to figure out effort and, why it's important for beginners, because this is the other thing, you have a unique opportunity to not learn bad habits.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of said in the chapter book is, it's around, the third or fourth, fifth, somewhere in that neighborhood of now you're starting to learn what that effort is and why it's important, because that's going to help you understand progressive overload. That's going to help you understand the true difference between your warm-up set and your working set versus, oh, this is a little bit heavier, or I'm doing a little bit more, you start to get a little more granular and you get a deeper understanding, because it's an extremely important thing because, same thing with cardio. I know we're talking more about lifting, but, the way I measure people on cardio, especially if they're doing a machine. So I tell them 20 minutes, you need to burn 250 calories, right? So the first time they do it, 9 times out of 10, they're not able to do it. So in that 20 minutes, they burn like 120, 150 because they're used to doing it, at their little whatever pace. So I tell them, so then they try to hit the 250 number and it takes them twice as long or whatever. And so this is how I frame it up. So I say to them, I was like, look, when I give you a time, the time is actually more important than the calorie burn, because that calorie burn on the machine, first and foremost, isn't accurate anyway. To me, that's an intensity gauge. You have to work harder to hit that number. You see what I'm saying? In that time frame. So you go on there, you whatever you do to manipulate, if you're on a treadmill, add more incline, add more speed, whatever, so that intensity indicator hits 250 by or before 20 minutes. That's another way, because that honestly, forget everything else I said, that's probably the biggest eye opener for people about how to figure out their RPE and the effort, because now they're realizing, holy crap, I almost died trying to do that. So I know my effort was high, or my effort was really only at 4. Now it's at a 10. So those are the different ways. But that's why it's important to understand that concept as early as possible. So then that way, because newbie gains, because Kyrie's basically referring to newbie gains. Newbie gains, if you haven't lifted in a long time, or you never lifted and you lift for 6 weeks, you're going to see some big changes.
Mm-hmm.
Big changes.
You can do whatever you want, dog.
Yes, and that's the scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna do a lot of wrong stuff. Especially if you don't have a coach, you probably about 60-70% of what you're going to do is wrong. But just the fact that you changed it up and you're actually doing something, your body's going, you go all of a sudden like, hey, where did these shoulders come from? Where did these biceps come from? And all that. So, but yeah, that's kind of my synopsis on that, because it's definitely an important concept to learn early. That's what I'm going to hammer home on that. It's an important concept to learn early. And then even as a coach, it's something that I'm learning earlier in programming, especially with my newer athletes or clients, that I'm talking about effort and things like that. Because there's a lot of people, and it's not you don't go hard enough. It's not that. Some people just don't understand the concept. Because to them, they thought they were going hard because they broke a sweat. I was like, oh, no. That's not the only indicator, Kimusabi. We got a lot more to go.
For sure. So yeah, let's go ahead and screw the cap on this one, man. This was a solid one. I can't wait for the next few episodes. Like, I have so much written down of things because there's so much to this. You know what I mean? We even touch on rest times and how important that is. You know what I mean? Do you do a short? Yeah. Do you do a long one? Is there a time and place where you have a variation of rest times? But thank you guys for watching. The next few weeks are going to be more educational, but more so to any of this, just remember the 3 laws: effort, adherence, and consistency, dog. That's it. You can do that with anything in your life, and you making leaps and bounds. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you have anything that you want us to talk to like next week, it's probably on this list anyway. Go ahead and throw it in the comment section, and we'll address it. But yeah, until next time, guys. Later.